OBS and Discord have not been my friend lately, so.
Yeah, my headset was messed up. I can see your screen and I can hear you fine. So
Oh, you can hear me fine?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I think that was my headset.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, just got like sanity check
Sorry
real
if I
quick.
interrupted.
Oh no, not at all. Because I really feel this is like funny. Because in Zoom meetings, you always be like, "Hey, can you hear me?" Because
Yeah,
half the time I just don't know.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. Um, I guess I'll go ahead and start it with Raghavendra stuff last time, since I guess the audio didn't get recorded for some reason. Was it everybody didn't get recorded audio, or was it just that one video, or is it all the audio? I gotta check later.
I,
Cause, hmm?
yeah, I didn't check.
Yeah, I gotta check again later. So yeah, my apologies for that, Raghavendra. Just these technical issues sometimes, especially the OBS recording. I don't realize it until it's too late. And I also don't believe I've said that I will do these sessions in the mornings. So if you heard that somewhere, please let me know, because yeah, that would be very confusing if I actually had that information out somewhere. But anyways, I'll go over what you mentioned, what you submitted last time, which I think was a huge improvement from what we had before to now. And I do see that overall there's a little bit of mood change with such drastic saturation changes. So right now, um, before it was clearly a sunset kind of time, but right now with these desaturated colors, it feels like it could be either dusk or dawn. So um, we can figure out which one we are going for, because in some of your references, even though they look similar, I'm not familiar with this film myself, so I'm guessing these are two different times, because I can see that her hair is wet in this one, and this one she is not wet. So I'm assuming these are separate times. But right now, this looks like it's closer to the time of day that we're going for, so I'm going to use mostly that one as reference and talk about what we can possibly do to get us closer to that. So I want to start with, again, I probably haven't mentioned these before because I still think we can probably push these further, which is the key, fill, lights, color, and integration on the character with the background. So I can see that right now we have a lot of different colors in our lights, which include, let's see, for example, this key light over here, it looks a little bit more saturated and yellow and orangey compared to the key light that's on the boy. And the key light on the boat seems like to be um, slightly different. The light over here seems more pinkish and less saturated. And on the fill light side, I can see that the mermaid has a nice light coming in and giving her face some more shaping. And this color is closer to the color of the sky. However, on the boy, I'm not seeing a similar hue of this color that's on the boy. It's more of a purple, bluish, more saturated light that's on the fill side. So I think it would be a good idea for us to unify which key light color we want to go with and which fill light color we want to go with, at least as a starting point. And later on, if needed, we can start changing those light color based on the character's needs. But as a start, it always makes our life a little bit easier if we start with the same color. Um, Also, I think the next one I want to talk about would be the sun direction and the, and like the color for the ocean and the sky, just in general. Because right now I can see that the key light of the mermaid is coming probably from behind her, and she's almost backlit, and I think he is getting somewhere that's a little bit higher, almost that's hitting here, but at the same time it's doesn't feel like it's hitting. He has that kind of shadow that the sunlight will have when it have to his face. So I think I'm kind of curious if we have any kind of special setup for light linking that is preventing those kind of shadow casting on his face. And and also I think right now, looking at the sky color and the ocean color, it feels, of course, it could be a lot of things depending on reference. It kind of feels like they're not very similar. Like in the sky, I'm not seeing a lot of these purples that being reflected in water except for here, and over here we have these more saturated oranges in the water, but the sun color itself is more yellow. So I think we can at least have the speck color of the ocean getting closer to the yellow tint of the sun, and possibly bringing that little bit of yellow tint a little broader so we can help integrating the sky and the ocean a little bit better. And then I want to talk a little bit about the shaping and the details on the hair, more particularly on the mermaid's hair, since this is such a big part of her character. This is like this. Her hair is bigger than her entire body combined, so inevitably we'll have to pay a lot of attention to this part, even though it seems like just a black round void. Sometimes I understand, like it's really sometimes like hair is particularly tricky, but they're very important to our characters. So I see that you already took some of the feedback I gave last time and added more detail and shaping in here, which is a great start. I like that there's some shaping from the key light, and you added a nice rim line or fill light over here. But I'm seeing that there are some of the details that's getting picked up that's from this side of her hair. I'm not quite sure what is contributing to this area of that where the light's getting picked up. So I might to look into that. And I think this is a really good start for the shaping of the hair, but we can possibly give it a little bit more fill light on the overall so we don't have these really crushed black. So if we can lift up the exposure, you can see that this area is still very, very dark. Same thing with the shadow side of the boy's hair. There's some very, very dark blacks in here. Like if I hover my mouse over it, I don't know if you can see very well over here. You can see that the value is pretty much 0, and in general we try to avoid these kind of very dark black in our shots just because it would lose all the detailed information here. So it would be great to have some fill lights to fill these up, meanwhile maintain it dark so we can know that it's still in the shadow. So I also look up some examples on how like looking at references in real life what black hair looks like. So in this case, we can see she's also backlit from the sun, and the edges are picking up these really nice transmittance. The light going through her hair looks really bright. And the shadow side, we still see these kind of slightly brighter areas picking up the fill light and the speck from the sky. And of course, there's an inner creases that's a little darker, and that kind of gives a more stranded feeling overall. I'm not sure. I don't think her hair is groomed as such. It doesn't seem like she had this kind of nice curls in her hair compared to our reference, but the overall shaping, even if we zoom out, we can kind of see that there's a key side and then fill side and some darker details. And I also find another reference that's a little bit closer to our current style, and it's very similar. She's being backlit, so we see a strong rim on her that's lit by the sun, and slowly rolling into the really dark core of the shadow that's closer to inside the head. So you can see the fill side still has a lot of nice detail. It's not until we get to the really dark area that we have a nice core. So we could possibly do the same thing here, having a key light that's brightening her edges and have some still in the shadow side but more filled area until it reaches to some dark core, possibly that's under, like right between here and her forehead. So hopefully that helps on how we can approach the hair. And last but not the least, it's always we want to evaluate the shaping of our characters' faces. So I think we already made a huge improvement from this to this. We can see her facial expression a lot more, and the boy's arm, body, and the face reads better. I think we can possibly slightly soften these shadow lines to make it look this is again kind of low res, to have a softer roll off like in here. It's not as sharp. It usually can make the character's face, the stylized character face, a little bit more appealing because it can bring out the features a little better. And same thing with the mermaid's face. So I have done a little bit of just like quick slap count. Let's see what it can look like. When you soften the edges a little bit, usually the face looks more appealing. Same thing with here. I also lift the contrast a little bit and make sure the color of this fill light is more similar to the sky color that we have, so she can sit in the environment a little better. And in addition to the faces, we also want to pay attention to her tail, because right now her value-wise, her tail and her body are very similar. And of course, we can tell it's green, so it's a different part of her body. But I think we can possibly also add some shaping to it, so you can read the way she's sitting, the folds. So maybe some speck from the sky and maybe a little rim to help bring out the shaping, so we can see that her tail is folded like this a little better. Yeah, I think that is probably a good place for us to continue working on this. There are some other smaller parts after we get these general strokes down. We can start refining them, but please let me know if you have any questions about the notes I'm giving today. And yeah, if there's anything I'm not clear or you're not sure which way to go, just let me know. And then let's move on to Diana. So hi Diana, it's great to see that you updated so quickly. And let me pull up your earlier version of this. So I think you did a really good job of separating the character against the background. Right now, because her overall brightness and the shaping, she definitely reads a lot better against the background. And also darkening this area also helps, so we don't get as much attention drawing on the screen left side. I do have some questions. That it seems like you changed the direction of the key light. Previously she was lit more frontally, and now it seems like she's getting lit from the sunlight that's coming from this window, which is either way I think it will look great. But if we're going for the way that I'm assuming the key light is coming from these windows behind her, then we might have to slightly reevaluate the overall the value structure of the background, because it works really well on her, on the character, but if we look at the room, it seems like it doesn't quite feel like they're lit by the same light source. And I'm not sure if this is something that's in the comp or something that's a volumetric is overly evenly that's kind of lifting these darks. I found a reference that's kind of similar, not exactly, of course, these are very different mood, but just as a setup as a warmish looking room inside with some volumetric and a window behind them, that we can see that there is in general the room feels a lot darker and the outside gets more exposed like this. And right now I can see that the darks are slightly being lifted instead of feeling like this kind of lifted dark usually is contributed by the volumetric in the room, but right now this doesn't feel like the volumetric is doing so. It feels like maybe possibly it was more lifted in comp. So please correct me if I'm wrong, and we can probably look into what's the best way to set up the volumetric light to come in the room, to self-separating the character in the background, but also make sure the room feels like it's lit by the bounce light, but not the fill light. Because right now it feels like there is another huge window somewhere that is contributing these coolish light source or more neutral light source that's up here and here. I can see on the specular, but at the same time, the character is not getting lit as much from that field light, the coolish field light. But I see it, kind of see it here. So yeah. So if this, please let me know if this is where you decide like we want to switch the key eye direction from behind her, because that will kind of change overall how we approach to rebalance the room itself. But I think the character herself is looking very nice. She has some very nice spec. She has nice shaping on her face, a green on her hair, and the shadow between her hand and the face is working really well. And also, I like that this is darker, that it doesn't distract us as much. But we can possibly also, if it's possible, to maybe work on the shader a little bit, because right now it doesn't look like it's a plant when they have that subsurface scattering on their leaves. Also, it's still quite saturated as a green element that's in the foreground. So if it's very difficult to get the plant to look right, I think we could possibly remove it. I'm not sure if this is a big story element in this particular shot, but if it's not doing that much to the character and the story point, and if it's a lot of hassle to make it look right, I think we can get away with not having this thing in the foreground. So yeah, I think it's a very good improvement. So just let me know if you need question about like this reference, the things I was talking about in this reference and here. And then, hi Paul. And let's see, these are the two newer version, and this is the older version. Yeah, I think that both two versions, the newer versions you have are huge improvements from your earlier one, because I can see where the key light direction is coming in, and the background benefits from it a lot, because now we have more interesting shaping even from just a flat wall. We can see there's some gradients from light to dark. So this is really, so in both cases they're both really helpful. So I saw you were trying to see which direction works better. I almost feel like we can possibly split the difference in these two. I personally prefer this one more right now, this brighter one with the volume mastering in the background, because it does help separating the character against the background. Also, she has a stronger contrast on her face between the key side and the filled dark shadow side. But overall, this is a little bit bright for what I consider as nighttime, and also from your references. So we might want to figure out how to maintain these value structures of separating the bright and the dark, but also bring down the overall bright on the characters and background, just to make sure we have that feeling. So I think if we just bring it down like half a stop, it will feel more like nighttime and less it doesn't feel like we're trying to overexpose or making the nighttime feels too bright by having such strong intensity. And I'm glad that we kind of sorted out the room light situation. Right now she's being lit, the room light's mostly on one side, and because we have this volumetric in the background, it helps separating her on this darker side, on the shadow side. I do still see I have a question about the different hue the light colors on her. I do see there are two kind of blues in here. There are ones that's greenish, more cyan color, that's the color of this volumetric and lighting this wall, as well as her room light. But in this one, we have this more navy, this more purplish light that's hitting this dresser or desk, and similar to the key light color that's on her. So I think if it's possible, we should try unify these two colors, just go with one or the other. I think either one will work. And yeah, I think right now, let's see. Yeah, and with this window that's new, I think we can possibly bring down the intensity of this light that's hitting the background, so this dresser can get a little darker. I think somewhere we had before like this was very nice, because we can still get a sense of the window that's here, but they're not so bright that it's kind of competing against the character. And same thing with the books over here. Right now this area is getting quite a bit of light and plenty of contrast against this dark curtain that can almost kind of draw our eyes away from the character. So I think it will be helpful we can slightly darken this. And I see that you also did some update for the shader of the character, so it's not as glowy. It works a lot better now on this side. On her skin, it feels a lot more natural. But I'm still seeing a little bit of a glowiness on her nose and mouth area. Like her lips is still a little bit neon glowy, similar with her nose. I'm not sure if there's anything more we can do with it. If not, it can possibly be okay. Nose oftentimes gets glowy, and if it's really difficult just in shader, we might have to do some comp cheat. It just gets really tricky when the shot starts moving. So ideally, if possible, it would be best if we can fix the shader so the nose doesn't look like there's this kind of glow on her. Yeah, I think that's the overall I want to mention. There's some smaller things that we can possibly figure out later, which is stuff like the details in the background. Like the speculators are nice, but sometimes depending on when the shot starts moving, if it gets too distracting. And yeah, and also we might want to see if we can have these kind of warm colors in the background, this orange and yellow, like here on the pillow and the books, slightly get desaturated and blend in with the background a little bit better, so they don't compete as much with the character. But these are all small things for now. We don't have to really worry about it. Just I think the shaping of character is nice. We just have to make sure that the light colors are consistent and keep our focus on the character if we can. So yeah, and then I'll move on to Krystina. So thank you so much for updating your mood board. This really helps me to understand what kind of mood you're going for. And I think, yeah, your update is also very efficient on conveying the mood you're trying to go for now. So very nice job on that. I think the character shape, it has decent shaping, especially with the room light you're adding. It has a dramatic feeling, but overall it still reads very well. And right now I think my biggest concern actually is on the background, that we're seeing quite a bit of very strong contrast between this bridge over here in the midground and these far background elements. These water tower, I don't know what these are. I think right now these background towers are getting a little bit washed out by the glow from the moon. Meanwhile, we're not seeing similar kind of wherever this fog or light washes that's on the bridge, and this bridge has some very strong contrast and some very strong lines that's kind of stealing our attention away from the character. So if it's possible, I think it would be nice to kind of split the difference between these two, so bring some nice dark in the really shadowy area in these towers, but also give this bridge a little more fill light so it's not as dark. and they can integrate with the background a little bit better. And that'll probably apply to these, I'm assuming, cables as well. So they can, so this bridge can fall back a little bit in space, and the background tower can come a little bit forward, so they can, so we have a foreground, middle ground, left background, and then far background. And I think the sky update is nice. The huge moon is very dramatic. I think we can possibly evaluate the color of the sky itself on the side where we're not seeing the moon. Maybe this is intentional to have a pastel color of night sky, but it does kind of, for me, like, it doesn't feel like the sky's intensity and this value is a little bit bright. If the sky is this bright, I would expect a lot more fill light that's coming from the sky, because that's where usually an exterior setting, the fill light's light source is the sky. That's not either the sun or the moon. So we can either add more fill to the overall everything to match the sky color and brightness, or we can possibly darken the sky area, just this area that's not having this moon. But again, it will largely depend on your references. I'm not quite sure, these references don't have any kind of sky, so I'm not quite sure if this is a kind of feeling you're going for, because it could totally be a fantasy scenario that they have bright night sky. But if that's the case, well, then we can look at how we can balance our character and background lighting to fit that kind of skylight. Alright, and then I'll move on to Bipul. So hi Bipul, I see that you did some updates on this. I think it's looking really nice. The crafts now sit within the overall environment a lot better, and the characters looking good. The lens flares are a nice touch as well. I really don't have that much to add on this particular shot. The only thing that kind of draws my attention are the water drops that you added. It's just the unfortunate instances of the shape of and the blurriness and the color. It kind of feels really similar to the clouds. So, like, if I zoom out, I kind of couldn't tell if these are water drops or clouds themselves. So I think it would be nice to have some kind of this difference between the water drop themselves. It could largely due to the texture you're using. Water drops themselves can be very tricky because they're usually 3D stuff that actually will see some kind of refraction through the water drop. So if we're just using the texture, then we usually try to make sure this more subtle, so it doesn't draw as much attention to it. Right now I'm seeing quite a bit of it. I think it would possibly reduce the frequency of the water drop, and hopefully having a way of separating the look of the water drop with the clouds. I hope that makes sense. Let me see if I can find water drops on lenses texture. Not seeing any good stuff on Google right now, but hopefully that was clear that what my concerns were. So, but I think overall this is looking really nice already. So, whichever you decide to go, I think it will still be great. And hi Justin, I see that you started a new. This is a new shot. Is it brand new?
Yep, this is a new one. I just started it, so this is the first pass.
Awesome. Yeah, this is cool. Let's see. I think my first question will be very similar as a lot of the other interior shots. Like, is the key light coming from this window behind her?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if this is the case, and we probably will have to evaluate a little bit on the key fill ratio on the character, since if the sun is coming from the back, that means she's mostly backlit, and backlit characters in general will have a stronger core that's on the shadow side. Let me see. So let me just use this as a quick reference. I'm not sure if you can see what I mean exactly. This is not a 1-to-1 situation with your current composition, but in general, the key light is coming from the back of this character. So the strongest area, the brightest area are actually these here, this area, and the shoulder. And they, because this is in the film, so they could cheat another light that's coming in here. That's more like a wrap light. That's giving him most of the shaping. But the side that has that's backed from the window where the sun's coming in, can get fairly dark. Because that's a usually interior setting, that when the light's only coming from the back of the character, it usually creates a nice contrast to give you that backlit feeling. So similarly, I think we can do the same stuff on her, that we can have these kind of nice rim on her, on the edges of her shoulder and her finger, possibly a little bit on her face, like this one over here. But we can lower the fill. That's coming, I think there's a light coming like this way, this top down. That's bringing out her expression, which helps with her expression reads really well, but also kind of makes her feel a little flatter than it could be. While the sweater, you can see there's a lot of nice contrast on the sweater. So also in that regard, we probably also want to consider how to unify how these foreground elements are lit along with the background. Because I can see that on the couches are lit by the sunlight that's coming in. They're hidden from the top, and they go down to the shadow pretty quickly. They don't have this kind of nice wrap light that's hitting them from this side. Unless there's another window over here. I'm not sure if there is. But I think the foreground elements can also use a similar kind of notes, which is have a darker core on the shadow side. For all these mugs, as well as this chair, possibly. And let's see. Yeah. And also, I think we can possibly do something with either the shader of this table, or I'm not sure if this is the lighting or the shader of this table. Right now, if we look at value-wise, the table and the background are actually quite similar. We're not having a clear separation of the foreground. The character read stands out very well because she has a very high contrast, but the foreground table and the background wall are kind of blending in value-wise. So I'm not sure if it's because it has a lot of picking out speck reflection, or just the base color of this table is just lighter. I think we can possibly darken it a little bit so it can sit together with these foreground cups and with her. I think we just because we're just looking at this shot by itself, I'm assuming a lot of stuff just from the lighting. So right now I'm assuming there is this is a window right here, there's another window here, and somewhere over here there is a light coming from the window that's giving this kind of cool fill light. And if that is the case, or if this is a mood which we want to create, then we might have to add this kind of cool fill light into the background as well. Right now this is lit very warmly from the bounce, feels like the bounce light from the sun. But some usually, if there's a window here that's giving these kind of very saturated blue, I would imagine to see a lot of it in these darker shadows in the background as well. Yeah, is this shot just a single frame or is it animated?
It's animated.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The character basically complains of bad coffee, so the camera's locked down, so it's kind of funny. It's just basically facial expressions.
Okay. Yeah. Um, I think something we can also possibly explore is to figure out a color theme for some of these elements that we have. I think for your references for Big Hero 6,
So what I believe you were trying to say.
that we can see a lot of they intentionally use this green and this warm orange in most of the area, so it's like mostly stuff of wood against this green. This is kind of the theme they have. This is the palette, and they have a few things that stands out, which are like these bags that's slightly more saturated, but and the character, because character has their own color palettes. But in general, you can probably see that a lot of the things are following that color palette. The warm things are usually orange to yellow with various saturation, and the cooler things in this room are mostly greenish. You can see that the bag is green. These are all kind of green. That kind of helps unify the environment together to create a certain kind of mood, and also the character, when they have very different kind of palette, that helps them stand out. So maybe it's something we can also consider doing here, because we currently have a lot of different kind of colors on the color wheel. It's all in this one shot, and I think having this kind of simplified color palette can also help with the point of the shot and the read of everything. Does that make sense? What do you think?
Yep, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's simple. So just so the character reads better, there's not as many distracting colors.
Yeah. Usually, especially usually in animation production, they like to give the environments and the character, they assign like a palette to them. I don't know if you have seen character lineup sheet. It's like these are the, like if you essentially, it's like if you abstract characters into like blocks, just like a square of like top to bottom colors, they should be so recognizable that, for example, a color like this, like for Buzz Lightyear, like he has a very, very unique color scheme. Like even if you don't look at the character, if you can you can probably hide these character and just look at this color scheme, and you can probably think about Buzz Lightyear. So the colors in animation usually are very purposeful to make sure that they're very recognizable and identifiable no matter what kind of situation they're in. So if it will be helpful if we can simplify some of these, so the character has a very like outstanding kind of palette on her own. Yeah, anyways, that was just an example on the show.
Oh, that's perfect. That helps a lot. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, of course. Let's see, did I miss anybody? And
Linda.
mm-hmm.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, how are you?
Did you make the critique of my shot?
Yeah, I did. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah, no
I couldn't
worries.
listen.
I know. Yeah, timing is. Yeah, I know. A different time zone is always tricky to make it to these things, and hopefully, fingers crossed, my voice are recorded this time. I spent 20 minutes doing tech check earlier. But
Yes, I was scared about to see
yeah,
the video on YouTube and don't listen
no,
my critique.
yeah. Anyways, I think overall this was moving along really nicely. A very nice shaping and details that's adding to the background compared to previous versions. So the background has a lot more depth right now. I was just a little bit, and I personally slightly prefer this version better just because it has some stronger contrast and separating the foreground and the background, the foreground
Right.
of the character. However, my concern was mostly the hue, I can still see quite a big difference in these two lights, hue-wise. And also, the character herself, the shaders, even though you already made a huge improvement, she's not as glowy on this side anymore. But her nose and her lips still had a little bit of neon feeling. Yeah, so I'm not sure if we can further refine it, if that's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, and also, this is not on you, but this model is very unfortunate. These creases on the expression. It doesn't make her look super appealing. Like when I look at the playback.
You're gonna sit him down? You're gonna sit him down?
Because it's really flat. So her facial expression looks a lot more appealing over here.
Both of them.
Because we don't see those kind of
And you're gonna
lines.
prepare them for the fact that you might not ever come home.
I'm not sure if it's possible for us to do anything about it. If not, we might have to figure out some cheat and comp to soften these lines out. It's when these kind of things happen, a lot of times it's not within the lighter's responsibility. We can only try our best. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just something that's very unfortunate because we're looking at her face so much, and when she's making these unappealing lines, it's really hard to look away from. Yeah.
But I should use a roto paint in Nuke or something to clean it?
It will be very tricky. For these kind of things,
Yeah.
usually the rig will just have to get cleaned up. Either the animator will have to go back and trying to figure out how they're doing these expressions, or the rig itself has fundamentally huge problems. But the best we can do in lighting is probably soften these lines in comp, but we can it's really hard to completely get rid of them. But it's just something I want to point out right now, this is something that unfortunately it goes against us to make this image as appealing as possible. But if there's nothing, if there's not much we can do, then kind of it is what it is. Yeah. So hopefully there's not if there's a way to cheat it in comp, that would be great. But if not, then we kind of just have to live with it. But yeah,
Also, with motion blur, could be like soft, like a chitty.
Yeah, I hope so. Usually,
Yes.
motion blur doesn't change much on these kind of facial animation. Motion blur
This is
usually,
true.
yeah, because they're usually not that drastic enough. They don't move across the frame enough to soften it enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to know. What do you think about these little details?
Yeah, it's just very unfortunate. Usually, especially in animation film, these are usually the first things the directors will start commenting. But of course, it gets sent back to other departments, not lighters.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any other question for me on this shot you're working on?
Yes, about the rim light in the left side. The rim should be in the hair of the character, or what do you think?
Oh, for this part?
No, the other left.
This one? Oh,
Yes.
okay, so this side. I think
This
that
fake
is,
rim.
yeah, I think it's to taste. It personally doesn't bother me that her hair doesn't pick up as much room as her skin because they are different material. But I do know a lot of the art directors that I've worked with like to have that strong light on the rim. So yeah, I think if we want to play it safe to cater to, I think, the general more cartoonish look, we can possibly also add some rim light here too.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's this usually only happens in animated look. In real life, it's really hard to get that hair to look nice and shiny and completely separate from the background all the time. So
Magic of the animation.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's mostly the biggest stuff that I mentioned for today. I think I mentioned other some details in the recording, hopefully. Then hopefully that, yeah,
Thanks, Linda.
of course. Do you have any question for the stuff I was talking about, Krystina? Oh, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Cool, awesome. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if that's all good, I think I'll probably wrap it up for today. Yeah. It's very nice shot for everybody. It's very exciting to see some of the newer shots coming in. There's some very, very cool stuff. So, yeah. Hope to see the updates, and thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good
Bye.
day. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.